She was already tired before she even stepped into my ship. I didn't know it then, but she'd been hopping ports for months, burning through what little credits she had, sleeping in cargo alleys and maintenance ducts. She called herself a mechanic, though from the way she was pulling apart my engine panel, I was starting to think thief was more accurate. I caught her halfway through cursing my fuel injectors in a language I didn't recognize, tail swishing like she was about to hit something. She froze when she saw me. Big, sharp eyes, ears twitching, expression caught between guilt and the kind of defiance you get from someone who's had to bluff their way out of worse. There was no brig on my freighter. Not unless you counted the maintenance locker, and I doubted she'd fit. I asked her if she had anywhere to go. She said yes, so fast I didn't even need the translator to hear the lie. I told her she could work for her passage. She laughed. Told me she'd rather sleep in the airlock than be indentured to some overgrown primate. So I gave her the other option, the bed. My bed. Her ears went flat, tail puffed, voice sharp. You expect me to sleep with you? I shrugged. Either that or the floor. But I'm not sharing my blanket with the floor. She agreed, but only because she was certain she'd sleep on the very edge and never touch me. She inspected the berth like she was evaluating a life support capsule. She muttered about how human beds were obscenely soft and big enough to store livestock. Then tried the mattress and looked betrayed when it gave way under her. She asked why we needed something so cushioned. I told her humans bruise easy. She smirked like she didn't believe me, though later she'd learn it was true. She was still muttering about the absurdity of it all when I sat down to strip my shirt off before bed. That stopped her mid-sentence. Not that she'd admit it. She rolled to her edge, wrapped her tail around herself like a shield, and turned her back to me. I flicked the lights down and stretched out. She hissed when my knee brushed her. Stay on your side, she warned. I told her I was on my side. She just had a smaller definition of side than I did. It was quiet for a while, except for the hum of the drive. I could hear her breathing, fast at first, then slowing. Her tail relaxed, curling toward me instead of away. I wondered how long it had been since she'd slept anywhere that wasn't cold, metal, and hostile. There's something about a warm bed that changes people. I didn't say that out loud, though. She'd have accused me of some kind of human sentimental ploy, and scoffed. So I let her drift off without another word, even when her shoulder brushed mine and stayed there. By morning, she woke with her face halfway in my pillow and a frown that said she wasn't happy about it. She scrambled to the far side, ears hot, tail lashing. It was for body heat conservation, she insisted before I could say anything. I told her I never said otherwise. That just made her glare harder. But I noticed she didn't leave the bed right away. She set her rules before the second night even started. No touching. No weird human noises. No breathing in her direction. I told her she might want to sleep in a different room if she didn't like breathing. She ignored that and continued listing prohibitions like she was drafting a treaty. No sudden movements, no arm over me, no mouth sounds, no grooming rituals. I promised nothing. The first violation came 10 minutes later, when I yawned loud enough to make hers flick. She accused me of doing it on purpose. I told her yawns weren't a controlled weapon. She disagreed. Then came the stretching, arms above my head, shoulders cracking, the whole bed shifting. Is this part of some primate dominance display? She asked. I told her it was called being comfortable. She muttered something about how comfort seemed suspiciously close to claiming territory. She couldn't get over human bedding. The pillows confused her most. Why does your head get its own padded platform? Do you think your skull's too precious to touch the bed? Blankets made less sense. You wrap yourself like a corpse preparing for burial, but call it rest? I explained it was for warmth. She called me weak. Still, when I woke later, she had the blanket over her tail. Bedtime stories nearly started a fight. I asked if she wanted one. She narrowed her eyes like I'd suggested mating. I clarified it was just a human thing, telling stories before sleep. She called it Primitive oral data transfer before unconsciousness. But listened anyway. Halfway through the night, the ship's coolant alarm went off. I jumped for the tools, but she was already moving. She ripped one of the spare blankets, shoved it into the panel to plug the leak, and tightened the line with a tool from her belt. I told her that saved us from an overheated core. She just shrugged and crawled back into bed, muttering something about humans being too slow to survive in space. When I got back in, she didn't bother rolling to the edge. She didn't even comment when her tail brushed my leg. She was asleep within minutes, breathing steady. In the morning, she woke against me again. This time she didn't move right away, just cracked one eye open and said, "Still just conserving heat." I told her I believed her. She didn't notice me smiling. A storm of micrometeors hit sometime after ship's midnight. The hull rattled hard enough to jolt us both awake, and she reacted on instinct, claws in the blanket, tail wrapping around my leg, eyes wide like the sky was falling inside the room. I told her to relax, that the hull could take it. She hissed back something about weak human optimism, but she didn't let go. I joked that if we died she could keep the bed. That got a snort she tried to hide. When the shaking stopped, she didn't move away. Instead, she muttered that the bed was dangerously comfortable. "I might rob you for it," she said. I told her she'd have to pry it from my warm, sleeping body. That earned me a look halfway between challenge and curiosity. She accused me of stealing her side again. I pointed out that her side kept creeping toward mine. She claimed it was gravity's fault. She started noticing things about me, my heartbeat, the rhythm of my breathing, and asking why humans didn't stop moving even in sleep. I told her it kept us alive. She scoffed but later mimicked my pattern. She tried teaching me her species' sleeping posture, which involved limbs in directions I didn't know bent. I pretended to suffocate under it just to make her laugh, and for a moment her guard dropped entirely. Work didn't stop just because we were getting used to each other. She was still in the guts of the ship every day, fixing things before I even noticed they were broken. More than once I'd find her asleep in the berth mid-afternoon, stretched out like she'd owned it all her life. I never woke her. The first time she had a nightmare, I felt her twitch before she made a sound. I shook her shoulder, and she came to with her claws half out, breathing sharp. Her eyes darted around until she realized where she was. Then she grabbed my wrist, held it a second too long, and muttered something in her language. My translator caught part of it. "Don't let go." She rolled away right after, pretending it never happened, but I didn't forget. We made port 2 weeks later. She had no reason to stay, no contract, no debt left, no excuse. She even packed her small bag, though she kept stopping halfway through as if she'd forgotten something. I caught her standing by the berth, staring at it like it had grown teeth. When I asked if she was leaving, she said she still owed me work. I pointed out that was a lie. She didn't bother denying it. The next morning, she was still there. She claimed the ship needed her expertise. I told her what she really wanted was the bed. She didn't argue, just demanded bed rights, if she stayed. Full blanket access, minimal shirt wearing on my part, and story time twice a week. I told her that sounded like a hostage negotiation. She said, "Exactly." I tried to make breakfast in bed for her once, thinking it was a nice gesture. She stared at the plate like I'd offered her toxic waste. "You want me to eat lying down? Is this some human ritual?" I told her it was comfort. She reminded me comfort was suspicious. Still, she ate it. Later, while changing the bedding, she stopped and admitted she hadn't slept in a real bed in years, and never with anyone she trusted enough to turn her back on. She said it like it was nothing, but the way she didn't look at me told me it wasn't. I didn't push. Before the next jump, I asked her why she was really staying. She tilted her head and said, "Humans are dangerous." I laughed and asked how. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You make people want to stay." When we set off again, she was already in the berth before I was, tail curled over my side of the bed. I asked if that was a declaration of war. She said, "It's a preemptive claim." and when I climbed in, she didn't move over. If anything, she shifted closer.